My name is Jose Mendieta, and my article is actually going to be over a Bloomberg article that discusses a recent Gulf Coast oil spill that happened off the coast of Louisiana. About 10,000 barrels of oil actually leaked out from this subsea platform as a result of a leakage. It's being called the biggest disaster since Deepwater Horizon in 2010. However, the impact of it is significantly less, since about 10,000 barrels were lost as compared to the millions lost through Deepwater Horizon. My presentation is over the LLOG oil spill and a little bit over the Deepwater Horizon, as it ties into this spill as well. And a quick overview of this presentation is going to be the problem, the geographic region of the actual spill, what actually caused the problem, effects on the surrounding environment, solutions, and references. This spill actually poses quite a few problems. So the first off is that LLOG Exploration, the company behind this subsea station, actually spilled 672,000 gallons of oil, and this was a result of a fracture in one of their pipeline systems. And another issue that comes up along with this is that the Gulf of Mexico is actually a home to a lot of these companies who do a lot of subsea drilling for oil, natural gas, and all sorts of things. And when you actually have this many platforms congregated in one place, a lot of spills and accidents, such as the Deepwater Horizon, which you can see a picture of next to the text here, happen. And this is not a drop in the bucket compared to other spills, but according to the EPA, 10 to 15 million gallons of oil and crude are spilled just every year. This is a map of the geographic region of where the accident happened. So this is actually a map of the Gulf of Mexico. This spill in particular happened more along the area of Louisiana, and this map actually shows a few different things. There's a lot of red dots along the coast, and basically those are subsea and offshore oil rigs, which are used for extracting petroleum. And the green lines are actually pipelines that BP has, the company behind Deepwater Horizon. However, where it becomes kind of interesting, unfortunately, is actually all the little green areas that are highlighted along in the map, and it's actually a pretty big mass more toward the eastern corner of the map. Those areas actually delineate spills that have happened, and they show kind of the intensity of the amount of oil that has been found in certain areas. But in particular, this recent spill in 2017 happened off the coast of Louisiana. This oil spill actually had a few causes that contributed to its problem. The main one actually was a crack in one of the pipelines, and it was more or less a hairline crack. However, the biggest issue with cracks like these, even if they're not very wide, the oil inside of these pipelines is pressurized by a lot of psi, and as a result, it quickly ends up spilling. Even though what LLOG claimed was happening was that the oil was actually sort of atomizing, and it was actually coming out in small particles. But even though it was just only coming out in small particles, they still add up very quickly, and we ended up losing 672,000 gallons of oil in total to this spill. One major flaw that can happen in a lot of these oil rig subsea systems is that sometimes there's a little bit of lack of oversight in the pipeline, because it's so hard to check everything, just because the pipeline is enormous, and you can't frequently send divers down just to investigate everything. LLOG actually ended up finding this about a few days after the spill originally happened, since their calculations showed that they weren't returning the same amount of oil as they were pumping. And probably one of the biggest problems with subsea systems is the reaction time that comes to spills, just because it takes quite a bit of time to actually notice these issues, and it's pretty hard to act on them almost immediately, which is why so much oil was spilled here, as well as even with Deepwater Horizon. Even though they noticed it fairly quickly, it's very hard to get down so deep in the water. There are quite a few effects on the environment that this spill actually has. One of the first ones is the destruction of habitat. Oil, when it's spilled, is actually either eaten by microbes that naturally occur in the seafloor, or sometimes it just coats a lot of the seabed over a few years. And the problem with that is that it actually starts poisoning animals that live there and destroys their habitat. Another effect that it has are economical losses. So apart from the oil company losing money, a lot of resources actually have to be devoted in order to clean up spills such as these or the Deepwater Horizon. As you can see, the famous ads that Dial Soap puts out, where they're washing pelicans and other animals with their soap. Ecological losses are another problem with this. So oil spills actually poison and decimate a lot of shrimp and fish, and this drastically affects the fishing business in the Gulf of Mexico, which is a really big business. And ever since Deepwater Horizon, it's been on the decline just because of populations that haven't come back as fast, and this just further actually contributes to it. Ultimately, the biggest problem and effect of what's it called, this spill, is pollution. So besides actually harming animals, it can also harm us through commercial fishing, just because these fish will be exposed to a lot more toxins that can potentially poison us. And it'll also affect tourism, just because people don't really want to visit areas that are coated by oil and polluted. There are a few solutions that can actually be implemented to prevent further spills like this. So a good one to actually implement is to promote more oversight over these pipelines, as well as more rigorous and more frequent inspections to them. If they were actually inspected more frequently and with more rigor, it's possible to see problems that can come up like this before they actually cause large oil spills and potentially prevent the environment from being decimated more. An actual solution that can come to this as a result of the oil spills is the cleanup, and also bacteria that live in the water. So a lot of companies will actually send volunteers to clean up animals and the shoreline to actually prevent animals from being further poisoned from the oil. But another cool thing about the Gulf Coast is that since the Gulf Coast contains so much oil naturally, there's a lot that actually seeps up naturally without it being extracted from companies. So there's actually bacteria that process and digest these oils that seep up from the seafloor. So when there's also an oil spill, these bacteria also help break down any crude that's been refined or that sort of oil that spills out. But ultimately, a really good solution is to actually turn to cleaner energy, such as solar or wind energy, which actually doesn't involve as many consequences as dealing with oil spills and possible fires from subsea platforms and that sort of pollution. Finally, this is a bibliography or resources I used for the topic of this oil spill. So I actually have a few articles from Bloomberg, from the EPA, from Newsweek, and also from BSEE, which is actually the Bureau of Safety and Environmental Enforcement, which actually investigated LLOG for this oil spill. But thank you very much for watching, and have a nice day.